And we're back like we never left. Oregon fans, what's going on? How we living? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with Scoop Duck on 3. It is Monday, May 20th, 2024, coming to you from Long Beach, California. Got a Monday mailbag to get your week started with my guy, Travis Rookley. It's going to be a fun episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you for being here. If you're here on the Scoop Duck YouTube channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But before we get into today's episode, the Ducks Dish podcast is brought to you in part by Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your dinner plans are tonight, but head on over to Ranchito at 1537 Mohawk Boulevard. Try their homemade tortillas. They got great food, a great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy, Ruben, and let him know that Max Torres sent you. So we are one day closer to football in Eugene, and I'm joined by Travis Rookley for a Monday mailbag, trying to get this as a regular thing here on Scoop Duck and the Ducks Dish podcast. Travis, how we doing, man?
Pretty good, Max. Thanks for having me on. Just finishing up a little work on a Monday. Excited to talk some ball. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Really been fun having you on the pod and getting to chop it up with you to get the week started these past couple weeks. Just a little disclaimer for you guys watching or listening. I'm a little under the weather, so I might be pausing my mic and coughing off screen the best that I can. So the show must go on, as you guys know, and it was a big weekend in Eugene. So we got plenty to talk about, and I'll toss it over to you, Travis, to get us going here.
Yeah, let's do it. First couple questions. I promised a couple close buddies of mine, big Pac-12 football fans. I'd get to their questions first. So to start, how scared are you of cold weather in Michigan, Wisconsin in November? I feel like that's a question that's been out there a lot, and just like this narrative about the weather and, the Ducks playing in these big time environments, especially the way our schedule gets up late in November. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think I see where this question's coming from. I can understand the hesitations or maybe some nervousness about that that's a real Big Ten weather type of thing. When you think about these Big Ten environments, you think about your Michigans, Wisconsins. Got to give a shout out to my buddy Matt who went to Purdue out in West Lafayette. It gets cold there as well, but it's not like Oregon isn't used to playing in cold weather games. I think about one of the more recent Oregon-Washington games I was able to go to in 2021 in Seattle, and that was just crazy rain, wind, cold night. I'm not saying that's the same thing that we're talking about here, but Oregon does have some experience playing in some rougher weather. And if you just look at them compared to, I guess, what used to be the Pac-12, they probably had some of the more adverse weather conditions that you saw on a week-to-week basis. Of course, probably not quite what you get used to out in Colorado or Utah, maybe. But Oregon's used to it. And I think that Dan Lanning, one of the reasons I'm confident in the Ducks moving forward is that he has his teams up every week for the task, especially when they go on the road. So I can understand being a little bit nervous for that, but I think it's something they'll be ready for. And if they aren't ready for it, I trust the staff to learn and adapt and get these guys ready to go and just get better each week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's kind of two elements to it. I think that certainly the environments, especially honestly, from what I've heard, Wisconsin probably louder and a little more intimidating than even Michigan, given kind of the stadium constructs and the environment there. I mean, I think there's that piece of it, and then there's the weather piece of it. Personally, I agree with you. The weather piece of it, Utah, Colorado, we've played games in the cold there. We practice in the cold. I know Dan likes to run practice in the morning. You get into November, early practice in Eugene, you can be in the 20s and the 30s at that time. So I don't foresee the weather physicality element being a big thing, but I do think, Wisconsin, mid-November, depending on their team's success, I can see that environment being pretty jazzed up. So that's always one you got to have the guys be prepared for. But as you said, there's no reason to believe Dan won't have the guys ready.
Absolutely. So they'll be all right, but that's also a little bit of the unknown, part of the mystery and excitement. I think that adds to this 2024 season. And we'll be sitting here a year from now, Travis, talking about how Oregon grew from facing some adversity like that, or maybe even later on this year, depending on how the season shakes out. I think that that's some adversity that they're going to face head on, and they'll just learn from it like anything else.
For sure, 100%. All right, next one. What's your confidence level in Gabriel? Seems like everyone is just assuming he'll be excellent, but sometimes transfers take time. What would you say somewhere between year one Knicks and last year?
Dylan Gabriel is obviously a crucial component of Oregon's success this upcoming year. And I think we have to start answering this question by talking about Bo Nix and how it kind of was viewed as the Bo Nix experiment when he committed to transfer from Auburn to Oregon. We had some reason for optimism in the Oregon community, right? Because he was reuniting with Kenny Dillingham, who was able to kind of get his college career started on a high note. But then we know that he had some turnover issues, was playing a lot of hero ball and trying to do too much at times. But I don't think anybody could have seen Bo Nix's resurgence coming the way that it did. So it's a little bit different with Dylan Gabriel. I feel like he kind of has a little bit more of a steady floor than Bo did coming here because he has so much experience under his belt already. Bo had experience as well, but I don't think he was as consistent as Gabriel was coming in. That said, I do think that the concerns that I constantly hear about Dylan Gabriel is some of the turnover issues that he had when he was at Oklahoma, maybe trying to do a bit too much as well at times, maybe just trusting his arm too much. I'm not exactly sure what you can kind of attribute that to. But that said, I think that I'm pretty confident in Gabriel because I think he's a great quarterback. He's experienced. He's going to learn from his past seasons. Obviously, looking at last year with the Sooners, but also look at the offensive line around him and look at the skill talent around him. I think that's obviously going to be able to mask some of his deficiencies or maybe any areas of weakness. And really, for me, Travis, I don't think Will Stein needs Dylan Gabriel to be phenomenal. I don't think he necessarily needs to live up to that Bo Nix level. I'm not saying he's not capable of it. We'll have to see, but I don't think they need him to do that. There's so much talent around him that he really just needs to get the ball to those guys and take care of it. That's really, I think, in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more to that equation, but if I'm Will Stein, I'm saying get the ball out, get it to the playmakers, and don't make poor decisions. Take care of the rock.
Yeah, I mean, and before we really get to that point, which I think is a great one, I think we have to remember. I mean, Nix's first year here, sign me up for that from Dylan this year. I mean, if Bo gets 5 yards on 3rd and 5 against Washington, he's probably going to New York City his first year as a Heisman finalist. After that Georgia game, took him a few games after that to get into it. I mean, Bo was elite that year. So I'll be the first to say, if we can get first year Knicks out of Gabriel, I think that we're in a great spot. And I think that we will, based upon that second point that you had, which was the similarities between Gabriel and Nix are they're coming to Oregon with by far the best supporting cast they've ever played in. Crazy to say that, Gabriel coming from Oklahoma, who churns out running backs, wide receivers with the best of them. But the combination of running backs, receivers, tight ends, offensive line that Gabriel's going to have this year is certainly the best he's had. And I just think the way Stein develops and what he needs out of his quarterbacks, how that fits with Gabriel. I mean, Dylan was the guy from day one that this staff targeted. And I think that's for a reason. It's because the fit that he has with what Stein's looking for out of the quarterback position.
I'm excited to see what Gabriel looks like in this system because people can say what they want about the spring game, but you really can't take too much from it. I mean, the more I think about it and look at it, Austin Novosad might have been the best quarterback out there that day in terms of just how comfortable he looked, decisive, took care of the ball, except for that interception, obviously, to Dakota Fields on the deep ball. But I think that you're in a great shape here. You don't need to. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you don't need Dylan Gabriel to be some like second coming of Marcus Mariota, if you will, seeing that they're both from Hawaii. But I think that this is a great situation. To your point, that he's entering, he's got an awesome supporting cast, great coaching staff, and I think Will Stein is got to be excited about getting to run his offense through Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention the fact that, as you said, our quarterback depth. I mean, we can go 3 deep fairly competently right now, given the growth that Novosad's made. And I think what that does for Gabriel is he's always been kind of an underrated runner. I think people think of him as more of a pocket guy, but he can make plays on the ground when he needs to. And I think having Dante Moore in place, and hopefully not, but if we need him, Austin Novosad in place, that gives you the ability to run Gabriel a little more than you might want to normally early in the year, knowing you have guys that are ready in case he gets dinged up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they're in a great situation, and this has to be the most confident that you've been in Oregon's quarterback depth. And I don't know how long. I really don't know how long. I mean, for them to have this depth as they're entering the Big Ten, which is known for being a more physical conference, and going into this year with the hopes of returning to the playoff, albeit in an expanded playoff where you're going to play more tough games. It's just lining up well. It's another item on the laundry list of things that I think are lining up well for Oregon to have a tremendous amount of success this year.
Yep, 100%. Let's kick it to a little bit of recruiting coming from this weekend. Two-part question we got. Out of all the recruits who were here this weekend, who do you think will commit to Oregon? And with that, because they've been generating a lot of kind of buzz recently, what have you heard about the Duncanville duo?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's a little bit loaded, but it's pretty good. Man, there's a number of interviews that I've been able to get with some pretty top tier targets for the Ducks in the 2025 and even 2026 classes over on Scoop Duck right now. So if you haven't been reading Scoop Duck, you're totally missing out. It's the place to be for Oregon football recruiting. You can try us out for just $1. So got to make sure to put that one out there. I think right now, if I had to say a guy that I feel most confident in committing that visited this weekend, I'd probably go with Trajan Odom. He has a unique story, seeing that he's currently playing his high school football out in North Carolina, but he's actually from Inglewood, California. So, Travis, I'm kind of viewing this recruitment as a West Coast guy and a defensive West Coast guy. And really, the teams to watch here, I think you have Oregon and USC as some that are involved. Ohio State is also in the mix for Odom. But if this one were to come down to Oregon and USC, seeing that I know that they're leaning into that hometown school element, I would have a hard time betting against Oregon in the pursuit of Trajan Odom, because there's not a lot of top tier defensive linemen out west this cycle. We know that Folsom's Josiah Sharma is a big one that the Ducks are after as well, but I think Odom's probably the guy I feel the best about. He actually visited this past weekend by himself, which I think was kind of a unique wrinkle or a unique detail, if you will, in that visit. The fact that he flew across the country by himself to just get that really pure look at Oregon, if you will. He kind of said he didn't want to have to have his family around him, or, just get a genuine look at the Ducks without having that family aspect with him. Hopefully I'm explaining that well, but I thought that expressed just how serious his interest is in Oregon. So in the 25 class, I'd probably go Trajan Odom. But Ryder Lyons, a quarterback in the 2026 class, he's a phenomenal talent that really couldn't find enough good things to say about Oregon. Also out of Folsom, who I mentioned a bit earlier here. So Will Stein's got the Ducks in very strong contention there. He basically said that he thinks he has probably one of the strongest relationships out of anybody with Will Stein. So I think the Ducks are going to be a major player for Ryder Lyons as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a little plug to that, I mean, for those of you that aren't subscribed to Scoop Duck, I mean, Max has been doing an incredible job just with interviews and follow-ups with these guys. I think back to last week, just speaking of the Duncanville guys, your interview with Keelan Russell, which I think all Duck fans should certainly be paying attention to. For me, I mean, I think that Trajan Odom is definitely the most likely from that list, but the optimist in me, boy, do I love Jonah Williams. And I know you got some quotes from him up there today. I think we are squarely in the game for him. I think he's going to be a tough pull, no doubt, out of Texas. I know Texas is in the race. I know that A&M specifically has some buzz. But I think he's one of those guys that we've seen over the last 2 years that Lanning specifically has his eye on, given the need, given the position. And I think that one's going to go down to the wire, and I'd give us as good a chance as anyone, honestly, for him, even given the distance.
Talking with my guy Travis Rookley on a Monday afternoon. We got an Oregon football Monday mailbag. Obviously, got some recruiting sprinkled in there as well. We're coming to you on your podcasting platform of choice or the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All that good stuff is a great way to support us. So back to your point, Travis, we'll talk a little bit more about Jonah Williams and then get into some of the Duncanville guys. Or Oregon, I think, has been kind of quietly in the mix here, just kind of lurking in the background, while schools like Texas A&M, to your point, and Oklahoma have maybe more of the recent buzz because those were easier trips for him to take. But I really think that Oregon's going to have to get, and probably will get, at least one of the following three guys: Jonah Williams, Fahim Delaney, or Trey McNutt. Those are three of the top tier safeties that they are involved for in this cycle. And I really think you have to get one of those guys, not only because they've all been out to campus multiple times, but just the need that you have at safety. And I also have to give some credit to Chris Hampton. I feel like he's kind of been on a steady climb as a recruiter. He was driving the golf cart around with Jonah Williams sitting in shotgun this weekend on one of the pictures that we saw. So I think that he is really kind of an underrated, or maybe underappreciated, undervalued, just from maybe a fan standpoint, piece of this staff. I'm trying to hype him up because I think he's a critical part of Oregon's success after joining Dan Lanning's staff from Tulane. So Jonah Williams is going to be a big piece of this class, I think, and I expect Oregon to be involved until the very end. Let's talk a bit about the Duncanville guys now. Keelan Russell, 2025 SMU quarterback commit, and then DeCorian Moore, the elite wide receiver, number one wide receiver in the country, I believe, according to our rankings over at On3, recently decommitted from LSU last week. Kind of a move we saw coming. I think I view Keelan Russell's SMU commitment as incredibly soft right now. He did take his official visit to SMU over the weekend, I believe, and obviously the buzz from that is very positive. But those are two guys that are really important for Oregon's class because I don't think, even though they're being kind of viewed as a package deal of sorts, I don't think that if you take Keelan Russell, you're just getting him so you can get to DeCorian Moore. Keelan Russell is a phenomenal player in his own right. Look at the tape. It is incredibly fun to watch. And then DeCorian Moore, I think Oregon's just been doing a lot of great work there. There was talk of him coming out to visit this weekend, but I was able to confirm that trip did not happen before the weekend kind of got underway. He's kind of in quiet mode right now. So I expect that those two guys will be out to visit sooner than later, and definitely going to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the latest info that's been coming out is I think Moore set his official for the 21st, which is shaping up to be just an incredibly massive recruiting weekend in Eugene. I have to assume, I know he didn't confirm it himself, but I would assume that Russell's going to do everything he can to join him on that visit. I don't know. When I'm thinking about Moore specifically, I think about the fact that we were in the game prior to the hire of Rashad Samples and the offer and kind of push we've made for Keelan Russell. So I think if you add those two elements, and for those who don't know, Rashad Samples' dad is the head coach at Duncanville High School. I think we're in a good spot. I think for Russell, we're right up there near the top. I'm thinking he's going to be the type of guy that's just, as you said, a very soft commit. I think he's going to be like a decommit and flip kind of guy right away. For all intents and purposes right now, it seems like he's open. But it's lining up to get pretty interesting with that June 21st visit for both of them. And it sounds by all means that's been the plan all along, is to take two quarterbacks. You know, I know you had some quotes from Akili Smith Jr. saying that he's cool with that and ready to compete. So, man, you add Russell and Smith to this QB room, and you are in a great spot.
Yeah, I don't think you can get a much better haul than those two in this class. I think Hassan Longstreet, the Texas A&M commit, has been another one that we're watching there. But the other guy I would probably just mention here, sorry not to float around too much here, but another big visitor was Michael Terry. He's a San Antonio kid, Travis, and Oregon has two former UTSA staffers on this staff. Will Stein, obviously the most prominent, Antonio Parks as well. So I think that some people are maybe underrating where Oregon or underestimating where Oregon really stands in the Michael Terry recruitment. So he's a guy that took his first trip out to Eugene this weekend, I believe, and that was super important for them to get him on campus.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the dividends. You mentioned Coach Hampton earlier, Will Stein, Rashad Samples now, Malchow has some experience there. I mean, you can just see the clear push to be involved in Texas. And now, I mean, every top guy out of there seemingly has Michael Terry, DK Moore, Michael Fasusi. These guys are all the top of the top in Texas, and we're all in that top group. So you can see the all the work we've been putting in, hires, visits, everything is really starting to pay some dividends.
Yeah, I feel like they've been building towards a big June. May has been flying by, but I don't think they've started their official visits yet. So I think that makes every guy they've gotten on campus so far that much bigger of a visit because to my knowledge, it's all been unofficial. So they're continuing to build towards a huge June.
Yep. 100%. All right, next one. Who is one player from past Oregon teams you would add to this roster ahead of the 2024 season?
Ooh, that one's tough. So it's from any past Oregon team at
Any
all?
past Oregon team.
Man.
I'll go first. I got mine.
Okay, cool.
Before Derek Harmon, Haloti Nada. But now that we have Derek Harmon, I'd go Javon Holland.
I was just thinking about him too, but I'll think about someone else while you talk.
I mean, heck, we've had a lot of great safeties. So you can throw Pat Chung in there if you need to, but I don't know. I just think about the spot, just some of the inexperience still on the back line. I love the 3 preps we're bringing in now with Woodyard's addition. But I just think, I mean, the range Javon had, the flexibility he had, athleticism he brought from day one, not to mention the impact he had in the return game and different things. I mean, I think that if we're thinking safety specifically is still our weakest spot, which I think is likely my answer, I'd have to go with Javon.
Okay, yeah. So you went with Javon. I mean, I think for me, maybe I'll go Kiko Alonso.
He was on my list.
Just to really shore up that linebacker depth. And maybe I'm a little biased because he's a Bay Area guy. I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but his mom was actually my Spanish teacher in middle school, and he came by when he was at Las Gatas High. So pretty unique story. But I think you have a lot of confidence in Jeff Bossa and Justin Jacobs. But if I can't go Javon Holland, I'll go Kiko Alonso to really try to take this defense to the next level.
Yeah, I freaking love watching Kiko play. That's one of my favorite dudes. All right, last couple questions. We've been getting a ton of stuff about NIL, so we're gonna answer this one kind of the best that we can. I'm sure it varies, but how soon is in the process does negotiation of the NIL offer usually begin? We hear of all these reports about recruits loving their visits, but that does seem a lot less important if they don't have any idea what the NIL offer will be. So I think with that, first of all, I'll mention, if you are not subscribed to The Athletic, there's been a 3-part series started last week, their most recent article today that really went into Coaches Confidential about this stuff, ton of anonymous agents, all these different people involved. I'm involved in some of this stuff, and I found it to be super interesting and illuminating in certain ways. So I'd give a shout to that to begin. But I think the big thing in terms of when in the process it happens, it really depends on, is the player tied to an agent or no? If they're tied to an agent, that stuff tends to just funnel through there versus player parent. That's much more open from the beginning. You even saw in the article I mentioned just a second ago, a coach mentioned that he got a commit for a silent commit on campus. Player went public with it on Sunday. I'm committed. Great. We locked him up. And then he gets a call from the agent 3 days later. Hey, let's talk money. Agent says, I need $500K. Boom. Well, we can't provide that. And the player decommits immediately. So I think that really it comes down to who's driving that conversation, player and like family versus agent. I think when agents are involved, it tends to be a little bit more complicated, I suppose. But I think that that's kind of the pivot point when that conversation begins. What I will say is that Oregon does like a tremendous job. Their operation is so buttoned up when it comes to Division Street and Ducks Rising. And like those conversations are fluid. There's point people within them. And you can just tell with the success we've had in not only roster like building, but as importantly, roster retention over the past few years, you can tell that, it's a well-oiled machine here. The last thing I'll say is Lanning a couple weeks ago was at an event that a friend of mine was at, and he passed along this nugget that we are the only Power 5 program to not lose a starter over the past 3 years, which I think just speaks to not only the culture, not only the development, not only the relationships with the coaches, but just our ability as an entire unit to like be cohesive and build this thing the right way.
Yeah, and I'm not incredibly informed on the NIL space, which is a bummer. But every time I talk to recruits about NIL, they just talk about how detailed Oregon's approach is, and like they just have those presentations they give on the visits. So I think that Oregon does a really good job of getting ahead of it, or maybe just setting the expectation early so that players know what to expect. And then to your point, I think about the transferring aspect of it. The fact that they're not losing players, starting players, shows that they're delivering on their end of things, and things are just very stable, and everyone's kind of on the same page, and it's a well-oiled machine, so to speak. Because I think when you're seeing some of these other programs across the country have a lot of mass transfers to some degree, I think you can read between the lines and see that promises aren't always fulfilled. So I think Oregon was doing a great job from the start, just making sure that their collective is on the same page as the athletic department, and they're able to deliver everything that they're talking about with these recruits. And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing pay off.
Yeah, I mean, the retention piece is crazy. Once again, I'd reference like that article, the amount of time that people and coaches are spending just recruiting their own roster uh, is just wild. And you've seen a lot of the discourse out there about college coaches jumping to the NFL, being overdone with the workload, different things like that. I think that's the piece of it that's not being discussed, is that workload, that time. The reason they're having to allocate so much time to all these other things, weekends, holidays, everything, the reason this schedule isn't like attainable is because of the amount of time that's needing to be spent right now, like meeting with your own guys on your roster, discussing deals with the guys on your roster. Hey, I got a DM from this like that's the like thing that's totally new to this space, that I think coaches are just spending such an extraordinary amount of time on.
It's kind of a trial by fire, I think, for a lot of these coaches. And it's kind of like I feel like kind of like Lanning said, the whole recruit or die thing. I think he said that at some point. I don't remember when it was, but it kind of got me fired up. You just have to be able to adapt, and the best teams in the sport are adapting in a big way, and they're not getting caught off guard with a lot of these things that are happening in the sport. That sounds really vague, but I think it just again speaks to Oregon being ready for what's coming their way, and just adapting. I think that's kind of the name of the game, and Lanning's spoken to that multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to give credit to the entire operation, and from all the top down. I mean, from Rob Mullins to Division Street, Ducks Rising, everyone. This was a pretty wild space at first, and you saw some collectives who got out a little off their skis to begin. From day one, Oregon's like gone about this the right way and set themselves up in a great spot to have success. And you see it with the way their roster's been built today and moving forward. You're not in on the game for the type of guys we are. for no reason. So obviously a huge credit to them. Real quick, let's do just like a 1 minute quick question here, because I'm privy to it being a Eugene boy. Favorite place to grab a meal before or after a football game in the fall, and then we'll hop off.
Sure. I think my go-to, I usually like try to, when I go to games, I try to, say hi to some people in the parking lot before, and I'll get some tri-tip from one of my buddy's dads. So shout out to Troy Kirk if he's listening to this. But I'm going to go Sun River Brewery at Oakway. I really like Sun River. Ate there tons of times when I lived out in Eugene, and they got great food, some great beer. So I like having a bite over there if I'm looking for a spot to eat.
Good stuff. So the question did say uniquely Eugene, and I'm going to have to pull on my mom's hippie roots a little bit and say, I'll tell you, the Saturday market has legit good food. You go there on a nice fall Saturday before a game, walk around. That food is legitimately good. They got bakeries, they got vendors. It's basically a little food cart pod, and it's been there forever. So, especially out of town visitors, road game visitors. But if you want to experience like true Eugene, check out that Saturday market. You'll see some random stuff, but you'll also be able to catch some good food.
There you go. Some spots to check out if you're looking for a bite to eat in Eugene. Travis, man, it's been another awesome episode of the pod, this Monday mailbag with you. Apologies for my voice and any coughing off screen. I think I was able to hit mute at the right time. But before we get out of here, where can the people find you, Travis?
Yeah, I've been trying to do some more stuff on Scoop Duck recently. Did a little Q&A last week. So make sure, as we've said throughout the episode, subscribe there. Find me on Twitter at Travis Rookley. And like you said, hopefully keep doing these on Monday. So send over your questions. We're doing our best to get to all of them. But if we don't get to it one week, pop that same question in there and we'll get to it at some point.
All right. Make sure you guys lock in with Travis. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at mtorresports. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel. We're continuing to grow this thing and greatly appreciate your support. Read all of my stuff over at scoopduck.com. Try us for just $1. Get a month of premium access to all of our VIP premium content, what have you, whatever you want to call it. And then share the show, share the Ducks Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. Thanks to Travis for coming on, and thank you to you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.